The animal that I was put in charge of when we started was the pigs. I'm feeding them all the time and I'm changing their pasture. It's taking forever to me. And I'm like, this is not I don't want to do this. But again, the quail came along and I was like, let me try this. I can do this. And
Right.
and now, I'm in charge of the pigs and the Angus and the chickens. And I'm like, yeah, I got this. But I don't think I would have gotten there if it wasn't for something that I could get a hold of and understand very quickly and see my benefits.
All right, guys, today we're going to bring on Zack from MyShire Farms. He is going to be talking about all things quail. Why should you as a homesteader have quail on your property? Are they resilient? Can you raise them in small space? Can you raise them in a city? He has a Quail University class as well. We're going to put links in the description for that. But he's going to tackle questions for us as homesteaders I'm going to start off right out of the gate here. Zack, why as a homesteader should I even raise quail?
Well, we've got about 30 acres on the farm. So we raise a bunch of different animals, from Angus cow to goats to heritage pigs and chickens and rabbits, all kinds of stuff, bees. And we raise a lot of quail. Now, we've turned our quail into a business, but we got into quail because we felt like it was a very good self-sufficient animal to start with. And so when we moved to the farm about 14 years ago, we just wanted to do everything at one time. So we bought this and we bought that and we bought this. And then about a year later, we went, oh, dear God, we're failing at every aspect of homesteading. We can't keep up with any of it. So we're just not doing anything well. So we cut back and we made a plan and we said, okay, well, we're going to do this now. Once we get good at that, we're going to move to the next thing. And we really wanted to make sure we had meat for our family. So we were getting meat chickens and from hatcheries, growing them out. We wanted something that we could do ourselves, that we wouldn't have to keep outsourcing. And so Jenna did a lot of research, and back then there wasn't a lot of information about Coturnix quail. And so we got some of those, and they're perfect homestead animal. You need very little space. They lay, hundreds of eggs a year, and they start laying at 6 weeks old. So it's a massive turnaround, just super fast.
So you went from like it sounds like livestock all the way down to like the smallest animal like the homesteader might be able to have type of thing.
Yeah, we kept the Angus. We've always had the Angus, and we kept some laying chickens, but we pretty much cut back on everything else, and then just started adding that in once we were comfortable. We had a routine down, and we weren't just failing at everything. So yeah, we cut back everything and then just started adding on.
So you took the confidence booster, you went all in with quail, and you became a quail guru.
We sell about 1 million eggs a year all over the U.S. This year we're starting to ship to Canada throughout the year. At any point in time, our quail barn has anywhere from 6,000 to 8,000 quail in it. So we've made every mistake under the book. So we try to give that information back to go, oh, nope, we've made that mistake. Don't do that. So that hopefully people don't go through the same hardships that we did.
Right. And I'm assuming that a lot of those tips and tricks are in that Quail University course, correct?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The Quail University course came out last year. I partnered with a couple other people that we knew from the quail community, and it's a fantastic course. We've had it out for about a year, and we've continued to have 100% 5-star reviews on it. Wow. It's really helped. And so when we sell, we send a little care sheet saying how to take care of them.
Right.
And in that we say, please let us know what the hatch rate was, and we keep track of that. And I started noticing that people that took the Quail University course had about a 5 to 8% hatch rate increase immediately.
Wow.
So yeah, it works very well, just not with the hatching, but just the success of raising them all together.
Awesome. Okay. So you touched on something right off the get-go is you have like 30 plus acres. We have 14 acres. How much space do I really need to raise quail? Like, can I do this on a small scale, like even as an urban homesteader?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Now we built our barn a couple years ago, and it's, if I had to guess, I think it's 45 by 80 is the barn. But again, we keep like 8,000 quail in there, so you don't need that much space. They're very similar to rabbits, as far as, you get a little rabbit hutch, a little rabbit cage. Okay. You put some quail in there. You only need 3 quail per square foot, for multiple reasons, but it's 3 quail per square foot. It's or 5 hens to every one male. So I mean, a little tiny rabbit cage, you can put probably 12 hens and 2 males in there, and probably get 8 to 9 eggs a day. And all you got to do is feed, water, and collect the eggs daily.
And then if you're raising them at an urban level, can you raise them like in cities? Are there like, do you know if there's any like regulations or like ordinances that you have to worry about, like compared to like chickens or something like that?
Not well, number one, not that I know of.
Right.
But number two, it's always good to check with your local area just to make sure, because it's changing all the time. But no, a big reason why we thought that we could make the quail a business for the farm is because we knew a ton of people in the city that couldn't raise chickens, and if they could raise chickens, they couldn't have the roosters because it was a nuisance. Which means you can't hatch the eggs and produce more and things like that.
Right.
And quail is not that way. They're kind of under the radar. They're kind of considered pets. They don't go broody. They're not native to America. There's a bunch of different things. So as far as regulations go, the only thing that I've ever heard was an HOA regulation. But as far as like city limits, local regulations, or federal, there's none that I know of.
Okay. And not that we're telling anyone to break any laws or anything like that, but if you were going to do like the ninja approach to the quail, on the down low without, maybe don't ask, don't tell type of thing with the questioning line of things, it sounds like they might be a good option just because they are like small and quiet.
Yeah, absolutely. The hens don't make any noise at all.
Okay.
The males will, like, it's a very miniature size of a rooster. So it's like they'll try to crow, but it's like a whistle. Like, it's not very much at all.
Okay.
You've got a little shed or a garage. You put a little cage in there. You put a set together. And unless the neighbor is really trying to listen in, they would never know.
Okay. Yeah. Almost like a songbird in the background type of thing. Or just...
Yeah, kind of.
You touched on something else as far as the we like to use the word resiliency here. I'm not a huge fan of like self-sufficiency, because even in the homesteading community, like you have to build a community that has different resources and different tools and,
Sure.
and stuff like that. So as far as the resiliency of the quail and sustainability of them, once you get a set of them, is it pretty easy to have generational continuance of the birds?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So you can, like I said, once they hatch, they start laying eggs in about 6 weeks. The males are already active; they're ready to go. So you can start incubating the eggs right away.
Okay.
The hens will lay for about 2 years. You'll have to switch your males out a little bit sooner than that. But when you replace, you can put, the ones that you hatch out, just replace your old ones. We recommend you do that for about 3 years before you bring in new blood. But there's many different things with that. So like if you have a couple different cages, you can easily just swap out every year, the males from one cage and the hens from the other, and kind of mix that up. So you could easily do that and never bring in new blood.
Okay.
And then I've had at least 4 people in the past couple of months tell me that they're on like generation 20. Wow. And they still have not had any issues with inbreeding at all.
Okay.
So I would not recommend that. But you can go quite a while without having to try to freshen anything up.
Okay. And then right into that, something else that, as far as the resiliency and sustainability goes, as far as like feed availability and conversion, how, like, they're a small bird and they're a small egg. I'm sure you need a lot of them to make up like the same size as a chicken. Something I learned about as a homesteader that I wasn't really even aware of is there's that whole like feed conversion chart when it comes to different, animals. How do they fall on that conversion chart, and like what's the return on investment, I guess, if you're going to put the feed into them versus what you're getting out of them? How's that work out?
Well, the conversion, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I do know that the conversion rate was better than chickens.
Okay.
But I don't remember the exact statistics on that. It does. So I've done some quail math videos on our YouTube channel, and pretty much an average. Now it depends on where you're located, what your feed cost is, what your setup is, all that. But it's about 9 cents an egg. Now the eggs are a little bit healthier as far as nutrients go. But they are, it takes about 3 quail eggs to equal 1 chicken egg. But again, you can have a whole lot more quail and a lot less space than you can a chicken too.
Okay.
So that plays a part into it too. And they eat anything that a chicken would.
Okay.
When we started, we were giving them like the chicks, like a turkey starter, just a broiler starter,
Okay.
and then just an all-purpose layer feed. We did that for years and years and years.
Like a crumble, I'm assuming, right?
Yeah, yep,
Yeah.
yeah. We've tried a pellet. It's just a little too big, and the mesh. I think the best practice would be a crumble. You could get away with either one, but the crumble seems to be you buy it, you feed them, and you don't have to do anything with
And you
it.
don't have to worry about getting a specific like a specific blend or a game bird blend or something like that. You can get away with using just the traditional chicken feed from the feed store.
Yeah, absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely.
Okay.
Now, because we made it into a business, we wanted to make sure that we were doing everything with best practices. We do some things that I don't necessarily recommend other people do because we're paying more for feed than what we would recommend you.
Right.
But that's just because we want to make sure that the stock is good and we're shipping out the right things and things like that. But we customize our layer feed just for egg production.
Okay.
And then the starter grower that you feed them for the first 6 to 8 weeks, we just do a pheasant starter, a game bird starter,
Okay.
and it's nothing special. It's something that's in stock at our local store.
When it comes to, I guess, so you receive your birds or you receive the eggs from your company, and then if I have just a standard like incubator laying around, like one of those like styrofoam, that tilts the eggs, like
Mm-hmm.
Farm Innovations, or there's another one that like turns it around in there. Do you need a special
Mm-hmm.
incubator for quail, or can you use the same like traditional setup as chicken?
Nope, same thing. So obviously the eggs are a little bit smaller. So like the Farm Innovator or the Nurturite 360, which is the one that kind of rotates them, or the Little Giant or whatever, works all the same. They do sell like quail egg trays, but I've noticed that most people just use the chicken trays. And if the egg is just a little bit too small to fit in there, they put a little piece of paper towel underneath it to kind of spread it out. So most people don't even get the quail egg trays anymore. And our jumbo eggs actually fit chicken holders.
Okay, and so there, I was going to ask you, are there different size quail?
There's a lot of different varieties.
Okay.
So we've got like we personally sell, I think it's 23 different feather colors,
Okay.
which they're just feather colors, nothing special. I mean, some are special, but nothing super important.
Right.
And then we've got the normal traditional egg color, which is pretty cool in itself. And then we've got blue egg layers, which are called celadons.
Okay.
And then we've got jumbos, which are larger meat and larger eggs. They're the same time frame. They're still ready to butcher at 8 to 10 weeks old. They still start laying eggs at 6 weeks. They're just larger birds. And then we've got a bunch of standards that are a little bit smaller in egg weight and in meat weight, but they produce a whole lot more eggs per year. So I mean, it's really just what you're looking for.
Okay.
And they're year-long layers. They need artificial light, but I mean, they'll lay all year for you. So they lay about 300 plus eggs a year.
Okay. And you touched on light there. Do they, I guess that's another great question as far as artificial light. Is there a special type of light they need, or can it just be like a traditional like LED light?
It can be anything. They're not picky at all.
Okay.
We use LEDs in our barn, but I know a ton of our customers that have a little hutch outside, and they just put a row of Christmas lights up, and that works perfect.
Okay. And that can come on for like for a number of hours a day type of thing, or 24/7?
No, we don't recommend 24/7. So the reason why you're adding light, mainly is for them to lay through the winter because the winter comes and it's not as much daylight, so they stop laying then. So, you're kind of tricking them into laying all year.
Right.
So if you're doing 24 hours a day light, you're kind of shortening their lifespan.
Okay.
And so you're not going to get as many eggs out of them. So we recommend 16 to 18 hours of light a day. And again, all of this information plus a lot more is in that Quail University course. They're very similar to chickens, but there are a couple little quirks that are different just because they are smaller and things like that. But that Quail University course we spent a lot of time on, and we really do. It's called Quail 101. Yeah. And it's literally 8 hours of information that you can watch, as you go or before you get them or whatever. And it's yours to keep too. So, I mean, you can always go back and, when you start incubating, you can be like, I know I watched it, but now I don't remember. So, you can just log on and watch it again and go, yep, that's right. So like the incubation process is different. They hatch within 18 days, where chickens are, I don't remember, like 20 something. I don't know. I don't really do chickens anymore.
21 days, something like that, just a little bit
Yeah.
longer than that. Yeah.
Yeah. So again, not huge differences, but just a couple little differences here and there.
With the space, obviously, it seems like that would be in colder climates. How are they as far as their hardiness to cold climates? And then I guess because they're in like more of a hutch or a cage situation, it seems to me like it would be a little bit easier to insulate that if need be. But touch on that a little bit as far as like how the sustainability and resiliency of them being in different climates. You have to like shelter and wind and coolness and all that kind of stuff.
Sure. Now we have an aviary, and we've had the quail in the aviary before, and that works fine too. That's more of a natural environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you put them in there, they do just fine. And they actually will go broody.
Okay.
So them go, usually you need to hatch the eggs that they lay.
Mm-hmm.
But if they have more of a natural environment, and they're on the ground, then, they can go broody and hatch their own out. But we don't do that just because it's really hard to collect the eggs and they're so small and there's so many of them. There's no way we could do it. But you can do a hutch or a cage or an aviary or whatever. Now the brooding process, the first week they're about a third of the size of a chicken, so they're very heat dependent the first week. After that, they're about 3 times the size. So week 2, they're about the size of a chicken chick. So they grow extremely fast.
Okay.
You need heat for about 3 to 4 weeks, depending on where you live. If you're in Florida or Texas, 3 weeks, throw them outside, you're good to go.
Okay.
You're, up north, probably wait an extra week. You're a lot colder there. But once they're, we'll say 4 weeks old or older, you throw them wherever you want to throw them. Either it's a garage, uninsulated, or a shed, or outdoors, aviary, hutch, whatever. They're good to go. The temperature really doesn't affect them. It's the weather that could affect them. So as long as they have a little area that they can get out of the elements, rain, snow, wind, and they can get out of that, they do just fine. We have a ton of our customers that are way up north, or even Alaska, Canada. And so we were actually in Canada last week, and it was 6 degrees, and they were in an uninsulated garage, barn,
Yeah.
shed kind of thing. All of them looked great. Okay. They looked completely happy. So they kind of adapt to their location as long as they're fully feathered, which is 4 weeks old or older.
So like a traditional animal, you'd want to keep them out of, like give them a place to get out of the elements as far as like staying dry. And then I'm sure like a wind block for them to stay out of the wind if they needed to get out of that. And then it sounds to me like, as far as food and water goes, as long as you're keeping, non-frozen water in front of them that they can have access to, just the basic care for any livestock that you would have.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. Same deal. So like we raise rabbits as well. Those are just for us.
Mm-hmm.
And so, we've got 2 cages of rabbits, and they have the rabbit waters.
Yeah.
And so, during winter season, which it is now, we go out, we put the new ones on, bring them in, just thaw them out in the house. And then at night we switch them out and just keep doing that. Same kind of deal. Okay. As long as they have food and water, and they have at least 3 quail per square foot, and they have a little shelter, you're golden.
Man, they sound, I hate to say it, but they almost sound like too good to be true in some responses, because like they don't need a lot of space. They sound like they're pretty resilient. I like the idea that they're small and quiet. These are all things that we've gone through the checklist as far as like those people wanting to raise them in like a city environment, especially because it's like you can backyard garden or urban garden, in containers and stuff like that. But a lot of the things that people, come back with questions about is like, how do I have a sustainable meat source or egg source, deep meat and dairy type of thing. And then you run into the eggs and meat that you're covering with these guys. As far as a meal goes, that was one question I had for you. You said that there was about 3 eggs to the regular egg for a chicken. Mm-hmm. But how does it work out for like, how many quail do you need to actually like make a meal out of them?
2 is more than enough for each person. The kids eat about 1.5.
Okay.
I'll eat 3 because I eat a lot, and my wife will eat 1. So we'll say 2 each.
Okay.
But yeah, that's more than enough for a meal. Surprisingly, they fill you up pretty well. And as far as getting them ready to butcher, it takes us less than 2 minutes for the whole entire process, which we still butcher chickens, but I hate the whole process. So many steps. Not that it's bad, it's just not for me. But the quail is, I mean, instant.
I'm guessing just from the size of the quail that you probably you just completely de-skin them and everything instead of worrying about defeathering them.
Yeah. Again, very, very similar to rabbits, almost the exact same way you would do that. I grew up in the city, so I'm a concrete jungle kind of guy. This farm thing was not something that I was interested in. It's something that my wife always had the dream for. This opportunity came up, and I couldn't say no. You know what I mean? So when we moved to the farm, this was 14 years ago. I've actually became a much better farmer right now,
Sure.
but it's taken a long
Yeah, a little
time.
trial and error, right?
When we moved here, the deal was is she's going to have her farm, she's going to do what she wants, and I'm going to go work. And through time, we've kind of gotten, we've worked together, and I've obviously came to the farm full time and things like that. But I think that you were saying that it sounds like too good to be true. So when we started, Jenna my wife had experience in raising animals before, which I did not. And she had gardened before, which I had not. So I didn't have any experience. So she's doing all this stuff, and I'm at entry level, and she's passed me by a lot. So it wasn't something that I really could get into. I couldn't get interested in any of this because they were way more advanced than I was. And, trying to catch up, plus it's not really my thing. Like, it was just a lot. You know what I mean? When we got quail, it really piqued my interest because they're super easy to raise, and it was such a fast turnaround time to see the progress that I was making. So, I did the incubation process, I figured that out, and then they started laying eggs just in 6 weeks. So it kept my attention. And that, I think, built my self-confidence up to start trying to do more stuff. So then we did bees, and then we did rabbits, and then we did, and then I started really getting involved with a lot of stuff. So I think that's why we're very passionate about people trying to raise quail, because as far as me coming from the city, it was something that I could grab a hold of and then build off of that.
The learning curve wasn't super high on them. The return on investment, as far as like the turnaround to see the success, was fairly quick. That's 6 to 8 weeks, 10 weeks, and you're starting to have a harvest of things. So there's a lot, like you said, it's almost like that. You don't want to talk about instant gratification, but it's definitely, you're not raising a steer for 16 months to hope it lives the whole process and then have that issue where, maybe it has an issue and fails along the way or something like that. Like the pressure of the cost of investment getting into it, and then the return is a little bit lower than something larger like that.
Right. The animal that I was put in charge of when we started was the pigs.
Yeah.
So we got piglets, and because they're heritage, they take longer to be ready to butcher. And so, I'm feeding them all the time, and I'm changing their pasture, and it's taking forever to me. And I'm like, this is not I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
Take me back to the concrete. And I was getting very frustrated because, they wouldn't listen, and I would build something and they would knock it over. And I'm like, I don't think this is for me. But again, the quail came along, and I was like, let me try this. I can do this. And and now, I'm in charge of the pigs and the Angus and the chickens. And I mean, I pretty much do all the outside stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I got this. But I don't think I would have gotten there if it wasn't for something that I could get a hold of and understand very quickly and see my benefits.
Yes. So you just jogged my mind to one more question I want to throw at you is we try to, because, you and I both have family, we have kids. And one of the things that we try to make is you want to have systems in place that you're not shackled to your homestead. You're not like, I have to be here every day to milk this animal or raise this thing. If you wanted to do more of that, I hate to use the word passive homesteading because there's nothing really truly passively about homesteading. But if you want to have like a garden and systems in place for, I need to leave my quail for 5 days. Is that something that you have to have someone come and care for them, or is there systems that you can put in place that you could do that in maybe like the non-freezing months?
Yeah, it really depends on your setup. So yes, there is systems that you can put into place. So we build all of our stuff here on the farm. We've got a workshop, so we've built our cages and our feeders and all that jazz. So all of our waters are automatic, and we're on well water, so it's constant automatic. Our feeders are large enough where we We do feed daily because it's just a thing that, we're checking everything, making sure nothing's clogged, looking inside the cage, all that. But if we wanted to, we could go 3 days without having to feed the quail. So if something happened and I just somehow could not get down to the barn, I wouldn't have to get down there for at least 3 days. Now, there's multiple things, you could put a couple extra feeders on your cage and things like that where it would last longer. And we have a farmhand that's here 40 hours a week, so that helps us a lot. But we've also, so I'm not a gardener. I can't do it. My wife is, so that works out perfect. We actually have a friend that's about 15 minutes away. And so we learned a long time ago that we can share with each other.
Yes.
So, they're not great at raising animals. They tend to keep making the same mistakes over. It's just not their thing, and that's okay. And there's certain things that they do amazing that we're not great at. So we really share a lot. And so, we'll bring them stuff and they go, oh, yep, we've got your stuff here. And, we work as a community. And so if you're looking into doing that and saying, well, I don't want to be tied down or things like that, there's going to be people in your area that you can build a relationship with where, hey, I got to go out of town for a week. No problem. I got you. And you can really build that trust and that community up.
Okay. You brought up another great point I want to dive into real quick here is when it comes to that community aspect, when you have something to offer to that community that, it's nutritional, it's high density, where it's raised, it's locally sourced, all those things. What's the prospect of raising the quail and the eggs for consumption and for sale to the local community? Is that a market? Is that a resource? How's that look?
Oh, yeah. So we've got a 30-acre farm, and Jenna and I, my wife and I, this is what we do. It's our quail business.
Okay.
So this pays for our lifestyle, me and the kids and my wife, and it pays for all the animals and the homestead. Like, this is all we do.
Okay.
We do spend quite a bit of time trying to, I don't want to get people's hopes up and say, oh, just quit your job and do quail farming. That's not, it's much more difficult. We've been doing it for 14 years. But having the quail pay for themselves, very easy to do, and making a little bit extra to supplement, your extra income for the farm, very, very doable.
Okay.
We've got an entire playlist on that. We did that for the first 3 years. When we were doing this, it was all local. And there's multiple different outlets and sources you can go to.
All right. So if I don't want to raise 8,000 birds in a 40 by 50 structure, but maybe we have a homestead and you want to raise a couple of these different things. Do you sell quail eggs by the dozen, or do you sell them by the 24s? How much do they sell for? Kind of like, what's the sustainability of that? Like, what's that look like?
So we try to make it as affordable as possible. Now we're doing bulk. We're sending out a lot of eggs all the time, all over. Mm-hmm. So we make it as affordable as possible. So the eggs range depending on, like we talked about, many varieties, the blue egg layers and the jumbos and the standards and the pretty color. They're all different prices, but they range between 70 cents an egg to $1.10 an egg, $1.10 an egg. So it really depends on what you're looking for, but pretty affordable. Right. And those are for hatching eggs. We also sell live quail as well on the website. Our minimum amount for the hatching eggs is 30.
Okay.
Which sounds like a lot, especially if you're like used to chickens. Right. But it's really the way we do that is, and it's just a quick math thing. I won't bore you, but the national average on hatching eggs that are shipped over the U.S. is 50%. Now, we average much higher than that, but we always say, let's do the national average.
And you're seeing the viability of hatchability when they receive them?
Yes, that's correct. So let's say you order 30, 15 hatch out, mm-hmm. and then it's going to be half males. It always is. It just, you can't do anything about it. I wish we could, because we'd be doing really well if we could figure that out, but we can't. So that means 50% of those 15 will be males. So you're going to end up with about 6 to 8 hens, which will give you about 4 or 5 eggs a day. Okay. We learned a long time ago that a lot of people get into this with we get a lot of newbies, new people that are hatching or new to raising something for self-sufficiency or resilience or things like that. And so if we offered less, I think they would be a lot more disappointed because they just didn't know what they didn't know.
Right.
So that's why we start with a 30 count.
Okay. And then what about, I guess the leading question to that is what if when I receive the eggs and I start raising them, what can I expect to sell those for to the local community for? Like, once again, do you sell them by the dozen, the 24? Like how do you package them? How do you sell them? Like, what's that look like for like selling the edible eggs, back to the community?
Yeah, it really depends on your area and what you're doing with them. So you can sell 12 count, a dozen. You can sell the 24 counts, the 2 dozen. I recommend doing the 24. I think you can get, as far as profitability, I think you can get more. It's pretty much like trying to sell 2 instead of 1 to the same,
Right.
but you could do the 12. A lot of people do the dozens.
Okay.
Nothing wrong with that. So it really depends on your area. So for example, when we were doing, now this was a long time ago when we were doing it. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
The prices are different now. But when we were selling eating eggs in our local area, we were selling them for 50 cents an egg.
Okay.
And we were doing it by the dozen. And then we moved to the 24 count. And then we started shipping all over. Now I've got customers that are like in northern Kentucky, Tennessee, that they can't get more than 60 cents an egg now.
Okay.
But then I've got people that are up north in New York, Pennsylvania. I've got people in Florida that they say they get $2 an egg easy and they sell out.
Well,
so
hold on. You said $2 an egg?
Yeah, so for eating eggs.
So there was a range there from like 50 or 60 cents an egg to $2 per egg.
Yeah. So it really does depend on your area.
Okay.
When Jen and I were traveling to Canada to check on our partner farm, we stopped somewhere and they actually sold quail eggs in the restaurant. And it was kind of a fancy restaurant. It was Valentine's Day, so we went all out.
Yeah.
So it's very delicate. There's a couple of our customers that's in Virginia, and they've got a couple restaurant accounts to very high-end restaurants.
Okay.
And the quail eggs, they buy their quail eggs, the restaurant buys them for like $2.50 an egg. And
Wow.
I go, there's no way I could do that here. Like, that's not my market, but that's their market. So it really depends on where you're at. How much knowledge is very important as well.
Sure.
And it's all out there, but the nutrients they're much more healthier. You sell it as a farm, family farm, local, things like that. It really goes a long way.
Okay.
But again, the areas that are not very used to farm fresh, so the bigger cities, you can explain that a lot more. And I think you can get quite a bit more money from there. If you're in Tennessee or Northern Kentucky, a lot of farms. So the ability to raise the price for that would be a little bit more difficult. So again, it really depends on where you're at. But like I said, on average, it only costs 9 cents to raise an egg. So even if you're selling them for 50 or 60 cents an egg, you're making quite a bit of a profit on each egg.
Right, and that I'm sure that cost you're talking about is the actual hard feed costs and stuff like that into them. It's not the structure, the time, and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct. Yeah, the 9 cents is pretty much the feed cost. So it's not the electricity or the structure or the investment or the time. But yeah, absolutely.
Okay, fair enough. And then I guess one of the last ones I'm going to think of to launch into here is, this is just a really real subject when you're talking about different products. Is there a different lean, or is there some ethnic groups that I've found that they really enjoy certain products more than other ones? Is it something that you found like in your hubs? Have you found where there's a certain lean towards the quail egg consumption?
Yes, absolutely. So when we started, we were selling eating eggs, farmers markets and Craigslist and, local, and putting ads up in our local stores, things like that. And the Asian market contacted us and asked if we did balutes. Okay. And I said, I don't know what that is. And so a balut is a partially incubated egg.
Okay.
And then you take it out, obviously, before it hatches, usually about day 12. And it's a delicacy in Vietnam, Asia, things like that.
Okay.
And so that's what they wanted. Massive market. You go into an Asian community and say you have balutes, you'll be sold out forever.
Okay.
That's pretty much how we got off the ground. We were kind of treading water for a while, just selling locally and farmers markets. We found the balut market, and it afforded us to be able to pretty much double our size and then double again. And that's when we started getting more opportunities because we had a lot more product to be able to offer. So that's when we started doing the hatching eggs and the live quail and shipping. So yeah, Asian markets are fantastic.
Okay. And then with the balut eggs, because I know nothing about that really, is there a higher cost of resale on those? Number one, and number two, is there a lot more time and infrastructure that you have to have set up to be able to incubate those to day 12, or like how's that look? I guess as far as if just on a really microscopic discussion,
Sure. So you don't need anything. Well, you would need an incubator.
not like a special incubator at all.
Nope. Nope. Farm Innovator, Little Giant, whatever you got works just fine.
Okay.
You put them in the incubator for 12 days. You take them out, candle, make sure that you're not giving them, duds or non-fertile ones, and then you
Right.
just take it to them and they do the rest.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't need brooders. You're not hatching out birds. Whatever you've got, they're pretty much eating eggs, just more further along is pretty
Right.
much what it is.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't need anything else at all.
Okay. And then is the resale higher on that
Oh,
then?
yeah, the resale would be higher. So you are candling, which is going to take more time, and you're using your incubator, to get them to where they want them to be. So, for example, we were selling our eating eggs for 50 cents an egg. Now, again, this was way back in the day. I don't know what we could get locally now.
Yeah.
And then at that time, we were selling our baluts for 80 cents.
Okay.
So there is definitely more of a markup. As far as the work goes, 30 cents an egg, you're paying yourself quite well,
Okay.
because it's not taking much time. You've got to collect the eggs, whether you're selling them as eating eggs or balutes anyway. The only difference is you're putting them in the incubator, and then in 12 days, you're taking them out and candling. That's it. That's the only difference.
Okay. I don't know. You answered a ton of my questions. I'm sure that there's more out there. So anyone who has any more questions can throw them in the chat below when it comes to that. I'm sure we can jump on there and answer those. And then also, you do have access to over 8 hours of content through the Quail University course that you've got. We'll put that link down below as well. Because it sounds like it sounds like it's way more than Quail 101 for 8 hours of content on there. It seems like it would be a pretty exhaustive answer to some questions there, right?
Yeah, we've added on quite a bit. So there's, butcher videos, which is probably not Quail 101, but we wanted to throw that in there. And the videos, we've got a lot, but they're very short. I would say the longest one's probably 13 minutes long, and the shortest one is probably 2 minutes.
Okay.
I would say the average is probably 4 minutes. So we try to just give you the facts, and then if you want to know more, then you can watch the next one. If you don't, then you skip that video and go to the next information.
Okay.
So yeah, there's a lot of content in there, and there's Excel sheets as well. So like if you've got a family of 2 or if you've got a family of 7 and you don't know how many to start with or how many you would need, all you do is you just plug in, what you're needing or how big your family is. It'll tell you how many eggs you would need a day or how many quail you would need for how many eggs you would need.
Okay.
So, we've pretty much done a lot of that work for everybody as well.
Awesome. Okay. And so it's answering a lot of questions, it's providing the resources. And it sounds like you kind of alluded to it, I'm thinking, but is it kind of an evolving program that if something updates within that program once you purchase it, is it something that would update to someone who owns it already, who's already purchased it?
Yep, absolutely. So anytime we add anything, we send an email to anyone that's purchased the course, letting them know, there's an extra video or an extra spreadsheet or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So yeah, and then we also do a hatching hour that's exclusive to Quail University. So for new people just starting out, the incubation process can be very stressful because there's just, most people overthink it, which is completely understandable, right?
Yeah.
But it's like, am I doing it right? And, it's 0.2 degrees off. Did I destroy, and so getting just your answers during the process, we do it once a week. It's a Zoom call that you can sign up for. It's on Wednesdays, so that's available to them as well. And that seems to really be helping a lot of people as well.
So we'll put the link in the description below for that. How much is the course, and is it kind of like an instant access then?
Yeah, yeah. As soon as you get it, it's yours forever.
Okay.
You get sent the whole thing immediately.
Okay.
It's $49,
Okay.
and that's it. I mean, it's a great deal. We try to make it as affordable as possible, because our goal is to really get people to just try self-sufficiency. That's
Yeah.
kind of what my passion is. Just because I came from the concrete jungle, it's
Yeah.
like I wouldn't have known that this is a lifestyle was for me, or even if it was I didn't know it was a thing,
Hmm.
because there was no information. So we try to get as much information out there as possible so that people can get the information and the confidence to say, I think I could do that.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said, the space, the initial investment, even with the master class, you're looking at like what, $50 for the master class, and then how much was 30 eggs to get sent to you?
Like $24 plus shipping.
Okay. So I mean, like all in, you can like less than $150.
Oh yeah.
All in with like the egg, not the incubator and the setup it by any means, but the actual like first time investment, it's really pretty low when it comes to that, like kind of that entry point type of thing.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've got some videos that show, you get a Rubber made tote,
Yeah.
and you can use that as a brooder, no
Okay.
problem. We have a convention here on our farm once a year
Okay.
in September, and we had someone, and they brought a rabbit hutch they found on Craigslist for $12,
Okay.
and they changed two things on it that took less than 30 minutes, and that was their cage, and they had 15 hens in there.
Okay.
So yeah, there's definitely ways that you can get going very, very affordable.
It kind of goes hand in hand. We've been doing some stuff recently on microgreens and raising or growing your own mushrooms at home. You start layering, all of a sudden you have microgreens, which is in the greens. You have some mushrooms, you have some quail. I mean, you're starting to be able to build out a little homesteading mentality and really the functional resources with these smaller infrastructure setups that you can be really resilient in the concrete jungle. Even you don't have to get out to
Right.
the pasture space, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we didn't even talk about compost, so we'll have to do that some other time.
All right.
Yeah, we actually we've had professors from Ohio State University and from Michigan and all over the US that came here because we use a lot of Angus compost,
Okay.
and our pig compost and things like that. But the quail is completely different,
Okay.
and it's super, super good. So they're actually working on that, and currently we're giving it to a company that is in Columbus, and they're making it to bioenergy.
Okay.
But we've had a lot of interest from some universities and from some businesses that we can use this for gardening. We used it last year for our garden, and it was the best harvest we ever had.
So you've got the product of raising the quail, having the meat, having the eggs, and then being able to use the byproduct of the excrement for your amendments to your local garden space as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you, Zach, jumping on here from a homesteader to homesteader's perspective. You came from the concrete jungle. I came from not quite in the concrete jungle, but I was definitely not a farmer by any means.
Sure.
So you're speaking my language. We've made mistakes along the way. We just did a video recently called The Great Reset about basically how we're going through the process of, figuring out what we want to do, what we want to approach. But one of the things I love being able to bring to people that I'm passionate about is bringing the education and the contact for you doing something great, and then being able to offer that to the audience, to the viewer, that it would just maybe pique their interest that they can do this at home. We want to give the resources that no matter where you are, you can have that homesteading mentality. You can start preserving your own food. We have tons of videos on preserving meat and preserving chicken. I have a feeling that there might be some quail in the future as well. So those are things that we're really passionate about. It's just kind of like you were saying, is giving people the resource to get their toes wet and really start this mentality of being resilient and having that homesteading dream come to pass no matter where you are. So appreciate Zach jumping on here. We'll have links below for everything, give you access to what he's got for you. And we just want to say congratulations and do well with your quail adventures.